The title is meant to reflect a long Whitman-esque poem by Carl Sandburg. It's probably forgotten now. I haven't seen it in anthologies for a long time. A poem called The People Yes. My first creative writing teacher when I was a teenager in Southern California was a man named Norman Corwin, who had been a writer for radio in the 40s and 50s. He was especially famous for writing a radio play celebrating the end of World War II called On a Note of Triumph. And he always recited passages from The People Yes in a solemn, authoritative voice. He was a wonderfully warm, generous man, a gentleman from another era. So in my poem, I took some sentences from Plato's Republic, and the word wild is spelled W-I-L-D-E, like Oscar Wilde. A person, yes. My big, dumb, inappropriate body urges unity, social security, creativity cramped, stuffed with words, not farts. So fucking what? Let's spend all our arcade tokens stamped with rams. Test life. Crash me, dummy, against the brutality of fact. Come, aim, piss upon the book of common prayer. The yellowed pages of the book of natural history igniting under our magnifying glass, not some kaleidoscope. Underline in Plato, sex, anger, poetry makes these grow. She may return to us from exile if the case can be made that poetry is a source of goodness as well as pleasure. Whenever we do vote, let's scribble wild. Facing light's fist, kissing its ring, we die, snatched up, handed over, voided out, no worldview, viewpoint. Now I'll read two poems that are about my parents. The first, Examine Her Life, is about my mother, and it's the first poem in Oath. The second, To Have a Choice, is about my father and my response to his life and death, and it comes a little later in the book. Both of these poems ended up being written in iambic pentameter couplets. I had written about this family stuff in earlier poems, but after each of my parents died, my mother in 2000, my father in 2009, I could distill my experiences of them a little bit differently. Some background information. My parents moved from Los Angeles to Oklahoma in 1951. My father was gay, and I had a younger brother who was murdered when he was 15 and I was 18. Examine Her Life. Her mother's kitchen stank like a barnyard. Embarrassed by her cud-chewing father, feeling unloved, she swore she'd be perfect. Married, she wrapped furniture in plastic. Exercising under her calendar, she flip-flopped up and down, a reeled-in trout. Eventually, once she proved doomed to fail, her husband getting calls from men all night, her menopause, her diabetes, chips, cheap wine, divorce, her youngest son stabbed to death, her ideal broke. She breathed, she blinked, she watched the news, trapped in a wrecked, infested house she had designed herself for so much more. A victim's advocate, she pressured courts to grant parents of murdered children rights to ask the killers why, rage, mock, forgive. Her unself-consciousness became her grace. She saw she was simply alive, laughing, accusing, crying, mute, comprehending love, helping others feel before dying. And this poem is To Have a Choice. I balanced on the edge of what would be my father's deathbed, my body, 50, no, 3 million years old. His delicate, gray, desiccated face, his beady, twinkling eyes, blades. In that handsome head, he could do algebra. Favorite music, Stan Kenton, Busoni's transcriptions. Once he described hearing waves of sound at the Palladium. We'll never talk about it, I thought, why we both just masturbate with men and how. I'd hoped to relate to his history, tortured on a farm during the Dust Bowl, the Depression, and thereby understand, perhaps, not being open, honest, out, quoting, blaming all your fucking troubles on your wife, writing the family myth that she was crazy trash if she complained she wasn't getting any sex. He beat her meat black and blue, but he couldn't stop cruising observatory parking lots. Essentially, the doctor told, your dad's starving. An option is a feeding tube to his stomach. He sighed, no, I don't want a tube. I'm okay with what's happening. It's good to have a choice. Picture my poor mother riding spaceships, dehydrated, comatose, spilled across the kitchen floor. In Panama, in moonlight on a beach, he laughed, watching me trek into the dark, wet rainforest, chortling like a tree frog. Sunday morning, when the nurse called, I clung like my refrigerator magnet, Monet's water lilies, to a friend. A candle sunk in the black pool behind my closed eyelids. An orphan now, an only child, childless, worthless. I swear, people, poets worry. Bang, our planet's drying, drowning. Dying, we're terrified of scarcity. To tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. To the future, you, I guess, so help me. Now I'll read two poems that have the same source in my relationship to a landscape. There's a somewhat seedy, gay, clothing-optional campground in northern Georgia. It has campsites and little wooden sleeper cabins. When I first went there with friends in the late 1990s and early 2000s, it was a big party place. Lots of men would drive up there from Atlanta on summer weekends. But then social media and online dating changed everything, and suddenly the place was a lot emptier, just a few naked hippies stumbling around. And that's when it became a great place to go, to be in nature and read and write. This poem is called Along the Crimes Against Nature Trail Look, and the title is also the first line of the poem. And it uses the word kine, K-I-N-E, an archaic name for cattle. Along the Crimes Against Nature Trail, look at this aluminum pail, ugly, corroded, used now as a receptacle for cigarette butts, wired to a twisted, skinny dogwood in full blossom, hanging at an angle, gaping open like my mouth, yes, decorated with an American flag pattern, the metal pre-colored, not hand-painted, the pieces welded randomly, red and white stripes swerving into blue triangles. Deep inside it, on damp ash gray sand, an empty Splenda packet, a scab, half the original yellow, half tan, yellow plus the brown stains of soaked coffee. It contained artificial sweetener, made from sugar so it tastes like sugar. Wasn't the sugar industry big in antebellum Georgia? I uncork a brand new Southern California Pinot Noir. It tastes flat, dry. I whip out my nut cake wrapped in see-through cellophane. The wedge, copper, powdery, friable, crumbles. Bits of pecan must have sunk through the batter to the bottom. I finish what was on my plate, my paper moon, then watch it blow away. A cat without a tail wriggles in the dust, jumps, snaps at a firefly. Poor little creature, starving to death, afraid to snatch my bait, my scallop wrapped in bacon. Well, time to get back where I belong, the front porch of my love shack. Frankly, a goddamn outhouse, marketed successfully to stupid me, at least, as a condo, starting in the low 290s, all the other units still unsold. Kine grown, begging to get milked across the bronze stream. The larger poplars hold in their cellulose thousands of gallons of tears. Birds fluttering within their green leaves, mate, singing an atonal modal composition, microtones ascending, cascading, a regular repeating rhythm. Sparrows, vireos, grackles. Listen, assholes, I'm whistling. Dearest reader, ignore the laughter from the infinity pool over the hill of the party boys, private dancers, slaves to love. To life. It's only April, the wind still chilly. Too early, really, to be lonely. So this poem comes from the same location. The title Atman, A-T-M-A-N, is the Brahmanic Hindu word for soul, or to quote Wikipedia, the spiritual life principle of the universe, especially when regarded as inherent in the real self of the individual. But of course, I also want the title to sound like Atman, separated. And there are lines in here, the boy that can enjoy invisibility. And they're from James Joyce's Ulysses, the first section of Ulysses, when Stephen Dedalus is remembering his mother's death. And that's the title of he's remembering all the little objects that were around her deathbed. And he sees the program from a pantomime that she probably saw in Dublin in 1860s or 70s. So I just incorporated it into this book because I had that book with me when I wrote this poem. Atman. I flop my body, redolent of coconut, my sweaty, oily, selfish pig, my horny, dirty little spot on time, my heavy but fun burden, awake, baked down, as if to feed the bears, atop a picnic table's hot, hard pine. Overhead, a dome of leaves, neon green, noon suffused, shaking paisley shadows, cool, frail, spectral, dry, caressing my closed lids, tracing circles, X's, has me between earphones, thinking, splinters jabbing my bare back. Wow, this bower echoes, a basilica, a womb, a bowel. My weird queer soul, a spark, my first light, my birth, that after image, held, tended, read to, deep within this damp, flaming skull, aiming past the sun, prefers to use lust secretly, quietly, the boy that can enjoy invisibility, loves to project joy higher, zap apart tomorrow's clouds, trying to break out lightning, rain. Thanks so much. So I'll end with this poem. It's just a little bit longer. It's the last poem in Oath. And a couple of years before my father moved to Charlotte for the last part of his life, I developed kind of he lived at Aldersgate. um, but just before he moved here, I developed kind of a drinking buddy friendship with an older guy with whom I had some things in common, mainly just the normal hedonistic impulses and previous life experiences. I hadn't met my wonderful partner, Brent, yet. So I was fighting off loneliness and nihilism. After this friend died, I wrote down everything I could think about our relationship, his life, the funeral. About 2 years later, after my own father died, I shaped that material into this poem. So in a way, it's really a kind of displaced elegy for my father, and maybe for everyone we lose, and maybe for ourselves. Uh, Elegy for an Alcoholic Old Queen. Oh, my travel agent, you probably were just a situational acquaintance. Yet I felt sad as you died on a Wednesday on a crunchy, costly hospice room bed, your collapsed cheeks that fake bright bronze of tanning lotion, your corny tresses dyed blonde, ludicrously, defiantly, that very day, the day you passed away, snaking across the white, blubbery pillow, your eyes flat, still, your mouth a hole you can't keep trying to fill now. I looked down at your clear plastic wristband and it told me you were when I'm 64, a little older than I guessed. Nobody needing you, nobody feeding you, except to my greedy shock, your brand new best friend, your bipolar hairdresser, your primary caregiver, your sole beneficiary. Grabbing your delicate wrist, a squirrel bouncing along the amber-leafed limb of whatever variety of tree that was out there, I told you, I love you. Not. The ultimate hello, Dolly regular, you always drank half-priced, understanding being triple tipping. I was tripping when you told me, bluntly, you had months, well, weeks to live. You wept. Your whole life you had felt crucified, renting from your Christian mother, unable to come out till she kicked off. Then you seized the day, enjoyed champagne like Churchill every evening. Old fashions, Manhattans, slow, comfortable screws against the wall. I bowed into your yellow Lacoste golf shirt, pushed my pounding head through the tough little crocodile right above your heart, toward your liver, my brain a station wagon stuffed with screaming kids spinning wildly on river ice, cracking. At your memorial, the minister got the kind of cancer wrong, bemoaned the scourge of lymphoma, mentioned the tenets of our theology, though nobody there believed a word of it. No, not the air traffic controller, not the buyer's agent, and certainly not him, the man of cloth himself, who plastered pressures his friends for blowjobs. A disc jockey balanced a small green airplane gin bottle on the marble urn holding your ashes. I wonder whether in silvery dawns that emerald glows. Afterwards, stumbling among the cold gray cement materials of the parking deck, I couldn't find my Toyota Camry. So, pressing the black button on our keychain, I made my baby honk, honk, his sobbing echoing incessantly, like the voice of that old witch inside the room across the hall from yours, barking, Becky, 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 until I saw them, the red brake lights blinking, and with my thumb, I pressed again, shut that fucking honking up. The penultimate sounds of your rough croak, your words, can't do much about dying, fading from living memory, slowly. Thank you.
Oh, Chris, thank you so very much, everybody.
Hello.
Wow.
That was
Hello.
wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
That
you.
was amazing.
Good job, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Chris, I hope you can see everybody that's here. You have 21 people here with
Yeah,
you.
I do. Hello. Hi. Oh, hello. Ron, Mitch, Lloyd. Thank you. Eddie, it's good to see you. I know you're having you're in Columbia, so yeah, great.
I'm so glad to be here. That was so beautiful to listen to.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Great. Well, thanks so much. Desiree, oh, thank you. Keely, wonderful. Jared, oh, great. Allison.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry you can't see me, but I guess it's okay. Actually, I'm kind of happy that you can't.
Come on,
My
Chris.
hair is a mess. I haven't had a haircut for a long time.
We do have some questions that got written down in the chat section, so I'm going to go to those, Chris.
All right.
Let's see. The first one that I came across, and I may have missed one, I'll go back through it, was Karen was asking about the cover of your book. She said she very much enjoyed being watched by it. Also, she asked, could you talk about your process for selecting the poems for this book?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. Yeah, it took a long time, longer than any of my other books. Fortunately or unfortunately, it was frustrating at the time, but I had years to really refine it and polish it. I had really double the amount of poems. I had written half as many again for this book, and I just focused on developing it, and it just took a long time. I really had to sort of feel my way through the book and choose the poems that did the most and that didn't repeat things that were happening in other poems. But it really did take years and years. I was frustrated because I wasn't writing any new poems. I was just working on that. So, yeah.
The other question was talk about your first art experience.
Ah, great. That's a great question. My first art experiences were music, really. I mean, I think this is not unusual for poets, but my first real sort of, what led me to poetry was really being obsessed with music, you know? Like a lot of people in my boomer generation, I grew up with the Beatles and the headphones. And then when I was in high school in Los Angeles, all that punk music and New York music, Patti Smith, those bands, Talking at Television, all of those bands were just really influential and very exciting. And I was able to go from my suburb, Whittier, down to places like the Whiskey A Go-Go in Hollywood and see a lot of those bands. And so that, then, you know, when I picked up T.S. Eliot and read The Wasteland, it just was very immediate connection between all of that kind of exciting music and poetry. And I also had a real, because of my parents taking me to art museums and stuff, I was very influenced by visual art, painting. So the two of those painting especially and music kind of came together into poetry. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris. I hope you're also looking through all the compliments that are in here. There's quite a few of those. Can you see the chat section?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Yeah,
Nice. Great. Thank you, everybody. That's wonderful. That really means a lot to me. Thanks. Great. Thank you. Thanks.
I also want to point out that Karen put in the link for purchasing the book, which is out now. So you can go straight to Main Street Rag via the chat section where she put the link. That was just amazing. Thank you so very much, Chris. That I was, you know, I hadn't read anything from Oath, so that was just amazing to hear. I enjoyed just the images that you used and just the powerful emotional momentum of it all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't see anybody sign up for open mic. So if you want to go ahead and sign up down below, and you're still getting compliments. Station wagon full of screaming kids on ice. Yeah, that was awesome. Mr. Twister just pointed that out.
Thanks. Well, thank you.
That's awesome. The favorite quote of the reading, Jarrett Mosley said, "Bang, our planet's drying, drowning, dying. We're terrified of scarcity. To tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to the future." That's awesome. So you're still getting compliments going down there. Right. Oh, and Mr. Twister is Dan Mask.
Great.
Oh, this is fun. Yeah, I love the chat section.
Yeah, I see so many great poets. Jarrett, you know, it would be wonderful to hear some readings if we could open up open mic.
Okay, yeah. That's okay. I love that idea. I did want to go back to, yeah, you've got some great comments down here, so keep scrolling down that. So I'll open to open mic. Do anybody signed up yet? Let's see. Okay. Y'all are encouraging other people to do it. Jarrett said, "Desiree, read a poem. Do it."
Yeah, I was afraid, knowing people in this, that somebody would try to nominate me.
I was gonna say, you've been nominated. Are you willing to do so, Desiree?
I guess so. I would have to find a piece. Hi, Professor Davis. I'm sorry I wasn't talking earlier.
Hi, Desiree. It's great to hear you. Great.
Let's see. I can read this one. I'm working on a thesis, actually, Professor Davis. I graduate in May.
Ah, wow.
So yeah, super excited.
Yeah. She's been at NYU doing an MFA there, so.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, so this is called A Date at Starbucks and Target. He hasn't stopped talking about them since we met. He points at them in shopping carts, their teethless mouths drooling over Pop-Tart boxes. He talks about Pokemon with the ones that don't stop talking. He picks up teeny sneakers and pretends to eat them. He imagines his own, he imagines ours. I pretend dissolving into my hot double shot extra whip caramel latte. I'm afraid and hollow. I don't want to seem beautiful or brilliant. I'm afraid if I'm not careful, he'll want more than coffee in my stomach. I remind him I was a chubby child. He thinks that's great. There's a hole in his gaze. He's missing me, looking past the baristas and the cashiers, through the walls and the pillars, to the children and their mothers. I remind him I'm not mother-like, just womanish. Can't I just be womanish? I'm full of other plans.
Wow.
Great.
Wow. I
Thank
love
you,
that.
That was awesome.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
That's
Nice.
wonderful.
That was beautiful. Thanks, Desiree.
Nice.
Thanks, Desiree.
Mm-hmm. Do I get to nominate somebody now that I win?
Yes, that's fair.
Here, let's do it. Let's do it that way.
I would like to nominate Jared for nominating me.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's hear it.
Okay. First of all, Professor Davis, that was beautiful. I got your book. I've been reading it today. It's awesome. And I loved all of those poems. So yeah, awesome.
Wonderful poet. Just accepted for the MFA program at University of Miami. Great.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Bring a nice crowd with you, Chris.
Congrats, Jarrett.
Thanks, y'all. Okay, I guess I'll read one that I sent. Okay, here's one from a little bit back, and it is called Meditation Before Sleep in a Las Vegas Hotel Room. Meditation before sleep in a Las Vegas hotel room. At first, I assumed the pink glow was from the neon sign buzzing below my window. And then the fire in the bathtub went out. And then I learned war is no more purgatory than a cold bathroom floor. The green chest of your indifference, making my whole shtick useless. I can no longer hide from forgetting to write poetry. So I want to tell you something pretty. How a hand swells like a peony when ignored for too long. How a deer slips on a patch of ice and lives, but also something true. I'm afraid I no longer love you or anything. I'm afraid of poems that have nothing to do with what I just said. I'm afraid of writing a song, and even more, a ballad. I'm afraid of houses with wooden doors, but mostly what's behind them. I'm afraid the birds have made a home in the rafters. I'm afraid to look. My limbs stretched out on the bed, a perfectly laid outfit the first day of school. Your jar of thumbtacks, which echoes in a green-lit darkness, is more than I can bear. Did you know her? Probably not, I say. At the funeral. No one's funeral, that is. Or maybe mine. Not yet. Through the window, you dodge cars in a white dress and can't hear me when I call you by the wrong name. I let myself stand up. I let the glass jar be unshattered. I let a mosquito leave me alone. The end.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Great.
Wow. This is
Wonderful.
a lot of fun. So it's your turn now to nominate somebody.
Oh, it's my turn? Did he already dodge out of here? Is he still here, Edison? No, did he leave?
No, I'm
I
here.
was going to say, let me see.
All
Oh,
right.
no, still here. I see him.
I'm still here.
All right, Edison, go ahead.
I'd be happy to read. Thanks for the, thanks, Jarrett. That was so beautiful, Chris, and I'm so glad. Thank you, Jarrett, for sharing the info for the Zoom session. And it's great to be gathered, at least virtually, with other poets in this time of craziness. So
It's great, isn't it?
I hope everyone's safe and well.
Yeah.
I'll read something. It's a little sad, so I apologize for that, but it's called Sometime After Your Suicide, I Find You in the Apocalypse. And now no one can see anybody's eyes. The mouths are all closed or are no longer mouths. Miles and miles of tree dust and star branches. And I could be wrong, but I think this fog is from when everyone all at once whispered home, all breath-like into Earth's last moment, into this place where once the air and space between our words lived. Pharaoh here and sparrow there, now the walls of the British Museum are what we can only call dust. Particles new in that they have never not once been so small. Dust meet once more this world-looking thing where no one knows if we are never born or overgrown or evergreen, always being born, how nothingness has no memory, wakes up, is amused at its reflection every sunless day. Have even our words died? The dead rise to meet the end, hoping in the holes dotting the friable tissue of space-time they will find somebody was right. one of the somebodies who said one time that the end of any end is necessarily the beginning, because logic, or because gods, or because when the opposite of sun rises on the inverse of all these faces, we will step through the rattling pavement and see what's on the other side. We will do anything but die. The dead, even the dead, will not die. They rise and clutch the grief grass we've grown over their heads. They do pull-ups in our doorways and hang 2 more units of blood. They watch doctor shows in our living rooms, and we don't cower in corners. We sit courageously on couches. These very couches will all be gone soon, and we know this. So we ask the dead for a place on the grass, and the dead ask for cigarettes, and parents tell them depression isn't real before they go on keeping warm in this last orange night, where living and dead hesitate in the tiny expanse of the red forever, and drink directly from the maple trees, and kiss the glorious subway seats, and don't think about what they've done. This is where I find you, tapping a tree, making a movie, saving the dogs from their last seconds of loneliness. We talk with very few people in our lives. To the rest, we speak only a number of substitutions for hello and goodbye. We can either say the truth or something like, how you doing? And to you, I wish I'd said more. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Wow.
That's great, great.
Oh my goodness.
Incredible.
Thanks so much.
Really
Wow,
beautiful.
Daddy.
Very
Thank you.
I like to nominate myself.
Wow.
Go for it.
Mhm. Great.
Edison, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
really-
thank you all for listening. I appreciate it.
Great.
Wow.
We're thinking about New York so much now with the coronavirus, so hope everything's okay there where you
Yeah,
are.
I actually have been at home in South Florida with my parents for now, doing school virtually. So I'm not in New York, but
Good.
definitely thinking of all my friends who are.
Yeah, great. All right. Beautiful poem.
Thank you.
Edison, read through the comments in the chat, please.
Thank you all so much
Yeah,
for the
Awesome.
comments. That's so great. Thank you.
great.
So we had a volunteer. Edison, did you want to tag somebody to do it, or you want to let the person who volunteered to do it?
If people want to volunteer, that's great with me.
I'm going to volunteer. Mr. Twister,
All right.
Mr. Twister.
that's me. This is a poem that it's in memory of Riley Howell and Ellis Parlier. I'm in Professor Davis's class. Great readings today, Chris. Wonderful.
Thanks. Thank you.
List of the unforgotten. Imagine there is someone keeping a list of all the people that I have forgotten, or the real sharpness of memory is often after I see a drop of blood welling up, before I feel the cut, when I cannot make use of what is not, relying upon my vast sacred present and these remnants of shadows to know and not know who or what exactly is waiting there. And I find myself in front of you. All of a sudden I realize I have not forgotten you all this time. Looking at you, I am no longer the same.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Do you want to suggest somebody for reading?
Keely. She's still here?
Who are you looking for?
Keely, is she still here? Nope, she's not here.
I
Okay.
was going to say, I think she's already left. Let's see her.
Dan, I just want to say, Mr. Twister, Dan, can you hear me? About the
Yes.
poem that you just read. I think it's going to be really intense on April 30th. It's about the shootings on the UNCC campus a year ago, almost a year ago now. So we're not on campus. We're not going to be on campus on April 30th, but it's just, you know, what we've all been going through, what happened then and how we feel about it now. It's very intense.
Very.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Well, thank you. Come on, somebody.
Thank you, Chris. I'm just astounded by the people who are reading. It's just a great open mic.
Yeah.
Karen, I saw in the chat you wanted to read?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm having this problem where I feel compelled to read really fresh stuff. It's not necessarily a good thing, but anyway. So one day this week, I mean, I've been doing pretty good, and I was just kind of having a little bit of a crazy head morning. So I did my meditation and I was journaling afterwards, and one of the questions was, all right, well, what would you do right now if you could just pick what you want to do? So this is actually what I wrote down. Now, I would so like to write a poem about that bird who came this morning, singing from somewhere unseen, up in the old gray limbs of shagbark hickories, or the sway of the longleaf pines this morning. How the world was spring green neon almost, with a dusting of Eastery neon yellow pollen all over. About when I looked up into that new bird's song and saw the bright, the new alive. I did not know. I did not know the song that new bird was singing. That new bird was not a bird I knew, no crony, no familiar friend, just visitor. A cheerful, cheering visitor, just singing in the brimming over newness of this morning, with no worry, with no sorrow for what might be or what was. Nothing mournful in this morning, just an exclamation of delight, of joyful singing of the simple, splendid newness of this now. This greening anything is possibleness of this now, and how there is an every possibility, and an exclamation of a simple, splendid newness to that now. This now. This now. That's it.
Great.
Thanks, Karen.
Great.
That's good.
Beautiful. Great.
Love your accent.
Oh, yeah,
Hey, Karen.
thanks.
That was great.
I've been working on that accent a long time.
It works.
I'm owning it.
It is a beautiful moments down in that Karen. Did you want to take somebody else to read?
Who, me?
Yes,
you want me to pick somebody? I would pick Malika.
Oh, I was going to say we got Paul here and all right.
Oh.
Let's see. Okay, I'll gladly read. Let me see what I can find. And y'all have to bear through a video of me. Sorry. I'll try to see if I can put something else out because I can't. I don't think I can take my video off the host. Might be able to share screen. Maybe I can do it that way. Okay, that'll work. That'll give y'all a break. I'm gonna choose. Thanks, Karen. Sounds after the howl. And it's got a little quote from Lou Reed. I want all of it, all of it, all of it, not just some of it. We are swallowing grasshoppers and peppers with shots of tequila and falling off bar stools, off curbsides, off rooftops. We are dancing in a thunderstorm, daring lightning strike. We are the tremble, a near tremor that the dog feels before an earthquake. We are doorknobs turning in the dark when you think you're home alone. We are just struck matches ablaze in ourselves and smelling of sulfur. We are ass backwards, shirts and skirts too tight, and arms and legs too loose. A naked ballet of back stages, back alleys, and back seats. We are overflowing ash cans and trash trays. Our pupils are wide as abandoned coal mines and small as nail holes. We are burnt up, burnt out, burnt down. We are riding too high and we are being X'd out as quickly as the days on a calendar in May. We are dropping like flies, like leaves in a fall and a nor'easter, like pens with our knees.
Wow.
Great. Beautiful. That's great fun. Great.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Karen, for getting me to read. Let's see. I'll ask. Have I missed anybody that would like to? Somebody. But Paul, I would love to hear from you if you want to read.
Celestine.
Sure. I've got one I'm working on, so let's see if I'm shy about doing one without. Hold on a second here. Let me see if I can share screen too. I think I can. This looks like it. Oh, sharing is paused until I bring up my window. Okay, that's interesting. It's never done that before. Ah, there we go. Hold on, I have no controls right now. Am I sharing?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good because I'm not quite saying the same thing now. Beach at Corolla, North Carolina. Inside the beached whale was a library of what's gone wrong with the mismade world. All the plastic jetsam in the Gulf Stream swept up, sucked up along the wet highway, sifted and sorted through the fine baleen. Whose hunger ended when the tall waves hurled that body onto the unforgiving sand? The one rotting, picked by crabs and gulls, left at last like a bony cathedral? Or the grit-covered ones who came too late, the gawkers, the much concerned, the reader of the tangled strands left as at an altar, an opened book, unwelcome sacrifice at the ruined edge of winter's paradise.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful. Wow,
That's lovely.
Beautiful.
That is lovely. Thank you so much, Paul.
And thank
I
you.
am just enjoying this open mic. Fantastic, guys.
Awesome.
Great.
Paul, do you want to pick somebody to read?
Who's left and who would like to read?
Yeah, that's Celestine, you're here. Would you like
Celestine
to read?
would be a great choice.
No. Thank you.
One only if she would do it.
I'm just not prepared. Find anything. I would like to read something I could have found, but I can't find it right now. So,
Your voice. I'd love to see your pretty face too.
Oh no, not tonight.
Or the picture will do.
How about Katie?
I can read something that's really old.
Please do.
Love it.
It's called She Knows. Life is too short for waiting, she thinks. Inevitably, we know how it ends. She sits upon a thinking chair and hope it's not in vain. She moans unawaited reflection, wasted moments capturing the sweetness of her soul, her lips, her hips. Wasted moments like moldy bread emit its powdery stench. She sits upon a thinking chair and hope it's not in vain. She grabs a pen and twists it between her teeth, careful not to leave imprints, to not give way to suspicions, but evidence is there to see, if only looked for. Need for crumbs beckon to be discovered. She leaves them surreptitiously as is right and proper, not intruding, not look at me, hallelujahing. Righteous eyes will discover the signs. Crumpled paper with 2 lines that left her blushing, she balances on 3 toes of her left foot. Her hands butterflies through fragrant boxes at the top of the closet. There, luscious little nothings are set apart from their utilitarian brethren, pragmatically still tagged but scented with optimism. She breathes, she dreams, she acts. Tat-a-tat-tat-tat on suspended pages, then backspace. Delete, retreats, advance. Life is too short for waiting. She remembers the wise would make opportunities and not wait to find them. As she sits upon her thinking chair and hope is not in vain, life is too short and inevitably she knows.
Yay. Oh,
Oh,
thank you, Celestine.
Beautiful.
wow.
Very nice. Thank you.
Great. Great.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank y'all so very much. Celestine, you were on through some, do we have any volunteers before we stop?
Allison, I see you're on. Would you like to read a poem?
I know. I think I'm so happy to have heard, Chris, your poems tonight and your beautiful collection, Oath. I'm so happy that it's in the world, and I am so excited to have my own copy in my hands. I love those poems, and hearing them tonight really moved me in a way that during these last weeks I felt pretty numb to a lot of things, and you awakened me to what it is to be human, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
I think I will abstain from reading my own work tonight, but thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
It's really beautiful. So I'm so happy for everyone who's going to be able to read your book.
Thanks. Well, when your book comes out, it's going to be just so exciting. Allison's book, Swale, will be out in the fall. So
Thank you.
Great.
That reminds me, Chris, that I do want to say, if anybody has a book coming out this month or next month and would like to, I'm more than happy to do this as well. For, those of us with books coming out who are not going to be having, readings, or a lot of our book launches have been canceled. So I'd love to host somebody, a group of people that you're connected with, Chris. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope they come back. I have Melissa following, and if you don't know her, she's a Texas poet, fantastic.
Great.
And next week I'll be reading from my new book, The Stumble Fields.
Fantastic, great. I look forward to that.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, from Main Street Rag. We're publisher
great
siblings.
Great. Great.
And Karen's put the link up again for your book, Chris, and then also saying what I think all of us are feeling. Allison, I think you were saying about talking about feeling so numb these past couple of weeks, and for me, Thursday evenings have become kind of a point. Chris, you really, I didn't know you beforehand, but I really thoroughly enjoyed your reading, just that shared humanity.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this, really. This is just such a good example of how we've been using this phrase social distancing, but I think obviously we're not socially distant at all, just physically distant. I think this is sort of a cliche already, but I think we feel so much more socially connected and grateful for chances to be social like this. So that's just really wonderful.
Agreed.
Great.
Yeah, and Paul just wrote, Chris, you wrote it, you hit it on the head. Yes, connected in a very deep way, even if physically distant.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Great.
All right. Tape this, and Chris, I will put it on your Facebook page so you can share it with people that weren't able to be here today. Thank y'all so very much. So every Thursday at 7, just check Facebook. If you aren't friends with me, connect with Chris maybe, because Chris will know what's coming up next for readings, if that works. All right, guys. Thank y'all so very much.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Be
Wonderful.
well.
Thank you. Be well. Take care. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
Bye.
Be well.
Bye.